Good morning. In the words of our brother Ray Snell, welcome to the house of the Lord. Welcome also to those online. I hope you get blessed as much as we hope to be blessed by the Lord here today. Could you please stand while Steve brings in the Bible? Please be seated. Our call to worship today comes from Psalm 86, verses 1 to 10. Hear, O Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. Guard my life, for I am devoted to you. You are my God. Save your servant who trusts in you. Have mercy on me, O Lord, for I call to you all day long. Bring joy to your servant, for to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. You are forgiving and good, O Lord, abounding in love to all who call to you. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Listen to my cry for mercy. In the day of my trouble, I will call to you, for you will answer me. Among the gods there is none like you, O Lord. No deeds can compare with yours. All the nations you have made will come and worship before you, O Lord. They will bring glory to your name. For you are great and do marvellous deeds. You alone are God. Our first hymn today will be Ancient of Days. I could keep singing that all day, I think. Thank you, be seated. Isn't it great to see young Tom here on the little drums? Well done, mate. When I was preparing this, I saw an article that said, "What is adoration?" And it said then, adoration is one of the most natural things that we do as humans. We witness hordes of fans at football matches, unless it's the Eagles. are cheering and chanting their heroes forward, or the flocks of paparazzi and TV reporters around the latest Hollywood celebrity, all desperately trying to get a shot or an interview. It seems as though humanity is obsessed with adoring things. However, when we take a moment to adore God, a transformation happens. We are no longer held captive by the concerns of this life. Our hearts are lifted to that timeless place where God is. Here we can stay for a while, gazing at the beauty of his majesty, our spirits renewed by the power of his presence. Aren't those beautiful words? So let us pray. Almighty God, how wonderful you are. Creation cries out in awe of your power. The universe shines with your glory and greatness. Almighty Lord, how majestic you are. Each atom and molecule carry a tiny part of your plan. Every microbe speaks of your breathtaking beauty. Valleys, your mercy. Almighty One, how creative you are. Each tree and flower are filled with your wonder and bounty. Each life resounds with intricacy and miracles. I will lift my eyes to you, my wonderful, majestic, awesome God. And we'll now sing another song, The Great Southland. Don't you just love that song? Right, kids. Do we have a tribe of kids here today? Do you remember many moons ago when I gave you some seed to plant? Do you remember that? That's a long time ago, wasn't it? And I said, when you went on weather there again to bring all the seeds in, did you do that? That was bad study. I give you so? So I gave you 4 seeds. How many have survived? 2. Why do you think the other ones died? They got raided. What by Indians? Why naughty people? Mum and Dad raided. Celeste, did you raid? Eleanor. So, let's imagine, let me show you something first. Let me show you something else. Can you grab that, Tom? It's really heavy. Let's hold it too. This is my seat. Why do you think the elves are laughing? Why do you think the elves are laughing? It's more than wobbly. Ask Auntie Louise why she's laughing so much. Ask Auntie Louise. Auntie Louise, why is it wobbly?
It's a weed, Kevin.
What? What? A weed? Why are you so upset? Why? Do you think my seeds didn't grow and this weed took over? Oh no, what am I going to do? It is wobbly. But you know, we're a bit like seeds. If we're not looked after, we don't grow. And if we're not looked after, somebody will come and steal it and raid us, and then we become bad. Do you want to be bad?
No.
Oh, good. So, but if we're looked after, and who do you think can look after us?
Me, Dad.
And?
Yeah.
And who else? Who else? Who looks after them? Who looks after Granddad? Granddad? Who looks after you? You yell out for that. So Granddad says God looks after. See? God looks after. So if we don't want to be bad, we have to say, dear God, please look after us. Yeah? And God taught us how to pray. Do you know how to pray? I'm going to read you the Lord's Prayer. We're going to do it really slowly. It'll be on the screen, so we're going to do it really slowly, okay? So let us pray. This is how Jesus told us to pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Is that good? That means that God is going to protect us, because he does what he says. He does what we ask. Yeah? So thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for your flowers. All right, we're ready for the next song. Tom's all ready. I just realised we've got 3 generations of Higgins singing, playing here. That's great. And that song will be Still for the Presence of the Lord. Deb, would you like to come and do the readings, please?
Hagar and Ishmael sent away. The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking, and she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." The matter distressed Abraham greatly, because it concerned his son. But God said to him, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your maidservant. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the maidservant into a nation also, because he is your offspring." Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down nearby, about a bowshot away, for she thought, "I cannot watch the boy die." And as she sat there nearby, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin of water with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. Second reading. Is Matthew 10, 24 to 39. And it says, "A student is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the student to be like his teacher, and the servant like his master. If the head of the house had been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? So do not be afraid of them. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall in the ground apart from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered, so don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before men, I will disown him before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." This is the word of the Lord.
I'm going to ask you to use your imaginations this morning. So, I'd like you to imagine that you're a young woman. Might be easier for some of you than others. But I'd like you to try anyway. Imagine you're a young woman with a child and a husband. You have a stable home and a relatively comfortable life. Your position in society may be humble, but your family situation gives you some status and you are happy and secure. Then conflict arises. It doesn't involve you, but is between other people over whom you have no influence at all. But it has serious consequences for you. The status you thought you enjoyed suddenly disappears. Through no fault of your own, the people you trusted turn against you, and in the fallout, you're forced to flee from your home to protect your own life and that of your child. You flee into the unknown. Away from familiar surroundings, you don't know what to expect. You don't know who you can trust, and no one trusts you. You have limited or no access to food and other necessities of life. How do you feel? Now let's take a step back and think, how many women are there like this in the world? And it's not just women who are in this sort of situation, but men and children. There are more people now, men, women and children, who are displaced by war or natural disaster than at any other time in history. According to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, there are currently 108 million people in the world forcibly displaced by persecution, conflict, violence and human rights violations, and 35.3 million refugees. That's more than 4 times the population of Australia around the world are displaced, and 1.5 times the population of Australia who are refugees. So I wondered what the difference between a displaced person and a refugee is. The definition of a refugee is someone living in another country because they can't go back to their own country for fear of their life or political persecution. It's a huge and growing problem. Statistics like this, although horrifying, don't really show the suffering these people endure at a personal level. Now, many of you will know that over the past week I've been living on the same rations that a Syrian refugee receives in a Jordanian refugee camp, and that's part of Act for Peace's Ration Challenge. Act for Peace is the humanitarian arm of the National Council of Churches in Australia. Now, I'm going to share with you the stories of 3 women that I've learned about during this challenge. The first of these women is Fatima. She shared with Act for Peace workers how she'd fled her home in Habib, Syria, as a single mother with her children. This is what she said. When the war started, the Syrian army wanted to take my son and force him to kill fellow Syrians. The army knew we'd refuse our son to be conscripted, so we had to leave Syria. We couldn't get passports, so we had to pay to be smuggled out. It was a very hard journey. The smugglers drove us in pickup trucks across the desert. Fatima did find safety in Jordan, where she lived with her 3 children. And while they were now safe from the persecution from the Syrian government, life was still incredibly hard. With no ability to earn an income to support her family, she was reliant on support such as the rations provided by various NGOs. And she says, "We mainly depend on coupons and packages distributed by NGOs. They're getting fewer all the time, so we are trying to adapt. We no longer have breakfast, the children just have milk. I never thought this would happen to Syrian people who were living in prosperity and dignity." So going from a life where they had prosperity, perhaps not the sort of prosperity we enjoy in Australia, but prosperity nevertheless, and more importantly, dignity, to suddenly have that taken away and to be living under very stringent conditions in another country. Aisha is one of the many Rohingya refugees displaced from northwest Myanmar and now living in the Cox's Bazar refugee camp in Bangladesh. There were already 1 million Rohingya in Bangladesh in 2018 when Aisha joined 700,000 more fleeing Myanmar with her husband in the face of a very violent genocide campaign. And I'm sure everyone here will have heard about that campaign. Aisha stayed in Myanmar until the birth of her third child, but when her house was burned down, the family embarked on a treacherous 3-week journey through the jungle, across rivers in the monsoon season. Unfortunately, her youngest child died on the way. So when she arrived in Bangladesh, although she was now safe from the genocide assault, she was grieving for her child, separated from her extended family. Neither she nor her husband had any work, and there were 500 to 700,000 other refugees trying to find shelter alongside her. Aisha was 23. So can you imagine being a 23-year-old facing those sort of conditions? And the third woman I want to tell you about is Aida. Aida and her husband lived a happy life back in Syria. Her husband worked as a pharmacist while she looked after the home. But they lost everything after their village was bombed. They fled Syria to Jordan, where they now live. But being separated from her family has been heartbreaking for Aida. When her mother suffered a heart attack, she was unable to attend the funeral because of the shelling. And she's lost other family members to the war. Yet, despite all this, she still has hope. She has dreams of a better future for her son, who was born in Jordan, and hopes that one day he will be a pharmacist too and help people in the same way his father did in Syria. These stories are heartbreaking. It's hard to imagine how difficult it must have been for Aisha to make that dangerous journey out of Myanmar with a newborn child. But what choice did she have? Desperate people will do desperate things, but there is hope. Aida hopes her son will grow up to be a pharmacist like his father. Fatima has trained as a volunteer to help distribute food and educate other women in self-empowerment and business skills. A key objective of Act for Peace and its local partner organisations is to give refugees the training and support they need in order to put their lives on a sustainable footing without the need for handouts. So they're helping train them in running their own small businesses and to be able to support themselves without depending on charity of NGO organisations. As the Act for Peace CEO Janet Cousins says, the work that enables you to care for your family brings dignity. So being able to work is very important for these people. And it brings an opportunity to influence your community. We see that in a very different context in Australia as well. Being able to work and support yourself rather than depending on government handouts brings dignity, and it earns the respect of other people in the community that reinforces that dignity. So it's doubly troubling when that opportunity is taken away by circumstances outside your control. I mentioned hope. And what is the ultimate source of hope but Christ? In our Genesis reading this morning, Hagar was in a similar situation to many of the refugee women Act for Peace endeavours to serve. She was cast out of the household that formed her whole life very suddenly because of Sarah's jealousy. I think it's important to note here that this was largely due to Sarah's own doing, because it was she who encouraged Hagar to conceive and bear a child to Abraham. Morals being somewhat different in that day than they are now. And it was Hagar's son Ishmael that was the object of the jealousy. So for those of you who don't know the background to the story, Abraham and Sarah had been unable to have a son for a long time, and Sarah's perhaps ill-thought-out plan to get a son was to send her slave girl into Abraham in the hope that she would bear a son by Hagar. And Hagar did indeed bear a son, Ishmael. But once Sarah did have a son, miraculously, Isaac, she began to think about it very differently. Hagar and Ishmael fled into an unfamiliar wilderness with little means of support and, in human terms, I would have to say, little prospect of survival. Although she was cast out under God's instruction, so we read this morning that God told Abraham to do whatever Sarah instructed him to. It seems a callous and undeserved act. Once her water was all used up, she lost hope and left Ishmael under a bush to die. But in her despair, she called upon God who, as is his habit when the desperate call upon him, heard and led Hagar to water. I'm sure Hagar was grateful and served God faithfully after that. We are told God was with Ishmael as he grew up, and he became the father of a great nation. The story of Hagar and Ishmael is a side alley in the flow of Israel's sacred history. They branch off from the main stream that runs through Abraham's other son Isaac and are soon forgotten. But that does not mean God does not care about them or that we can't learn from them. God is on the side of the weak and the oppressed and cares for those whom no one else cares for. Jesus made this clear at the beginning of his ministry when he preached in the synagogue in Nazareth, as recorded in Luke chapter 4 verse 18, where Jesus read from the scroll of Isaiah, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." And Jesus told the congregation, "Today this prophecy has been fulfilled." Of course, we usually think of the captivity and blindness and oppression that Jesus is talking about here as spiritual rather than just physical. It is release from captivity to blindness caused by an oppression under the yoke of sin. But I'd like you to think a little bit this morning and ask, is this just their own sin? Is this release from, eye-opening to, and liberation from the sin of the person who is being freed? Let's return to the hypothetical case I asked you to imagine at the beginning of this sermon, of a woman forced to flee from her home in the face of conflict she had no control over. And ask yourself, is her predicament a consequence of her own sin? Of course not. It is the pride and greed and cruelty of those who initiate and prolong the conflict. Is Hagar having to flee due to her own sin? You might be tempted to say yes. But you might be tempted to say that she should never have agreed to her liaison with Abraham. But I don't think it's quite as simple as that. She was told to do it by her mistress, and in those days, slaves had to obey their mistresses. If Hagar had not done what Sarah had told her to, the consequences could have been far greater. The sin was shared between Abraham and Sarah. In both cases, the person who suffers most is suffering because of other people's sins. Part of the good news of the gospel is that Christ is not only the means to freeing us from our own sins, but also works to free us from oppression caused by other people's sins. In the case of refugees, God provides relief from the sins of the power-hungry and greedy through the work of church agencies such as Act for Peace and its local partners in various parts of the world. And in the case of Hagar, he provided relief from the sin of Abraham and Sarah by showing her the hidden well when she most needed water and protecting Ishmael as he grew up. As for finding freedom from their own sins, there is time for that once their immediate physical needs are met. For refugees, food and a place to live and freedom from fear, and for Hagar, water and a future for her son. Let us pray. Lord, We know that the plight of many people we know that there are many people suffering in this world, and the ultimate cause of suffering is sin and wandering from your plan for us and the world. But the solution is not always simple. We thank you for the opportunity to find liberation through the work of your Son Jesus. And we pray that this opportunity will be made available to people throughout the world, but in the process that we will be able to alleviate suffering whenever and wherever it is found. Amen.
Thank you, Bob. We will now sing Yet Not I, but Through Christ in Me. Norm and Cobus, could you collect the offering, please? Let us give thanks. Dear God, thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. Thank you for your goodness and for your blessings over us. Thank you for your great love and care. Thank you for your sacrifice so that we might have freedom and life. Forgive us when we don't thank you enough for who you are, for all you do, and for all you are given. Help us to set our eyes and our hearts on you afresh. Renew our spirits. Fill us with your peace and joy. We love you and we need you this day and every day. We give you praise and thanks, for you alone are worthy, in Jesus' name. Lord, we ask you to accept these gifts so that your work may continue to be done in this place. Amen. We now come to that part in our service where we have God Talk. I always feel a tad excited when I hear stories like that and God Talk, because it just shows that God's there, and if we look, we can see him, and he's all around us. He's in everything, he's in the computers, he's in our lives, he's everywhere, and he comes to us. So I just get excited about God Talk. Steve, would you come up and give the intercessory prayer, please? Thank you, Steve. Can you please stand for the blessings? From Romans 5, verses 1 and 2. Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand, and will rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Amen. Could you please remain standing while Steve takes the Bible out before us as a beacon for our lives and a guide to our feet. Thank you. You may be seated. Do we have any notices? Okay, thank you, everybody. Please join us for a cuppa afterwards, and may God bless you richly for the following week.